This episode is sponsored by Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes the Steel Woods on April 26th and Little River Band on May 3rd. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Rock and Roll Hall of Famer John Mellencamp plays DAR Constitution Hall this Thursday night in Washington, D.C. I spoke to his longtime guitarist Mike Wanchik about playing on iconic hits like Hurt So Good, Jack and Diane, Pink Houses, Authority Song, and Small Town. Hey, Mike Wanchik. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in Washington, D.C.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Nice to be here.
We are talking. You're obviously the guitarist here for John Mellencamp, coming to rock DAR Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. on April 18th, and it's the live and in-person tour is what you're calling this. So what do we expect? Is this like all the greatest hits sprinkled in with, the new album Orpheus Descending?
Yes, and the bottom line is, after a career that we've been making records since 1976, you have to sort of cull, there's a lot of songs that a lot of people hold really dear to their hearts. And you certainly want to touch on those things. I know when I see a Neil Young or somebody, I want to hear, what I want to hear. Yeah. So we always try to use as many of those deep memory songs as we can in our set. I'm a fan of music too. I know when I want to go see somebody that has a legend in songwriting, you have these songs that are so dear to you, and music is a major trigger for people's memories and emotions, and those are important things to people, and we can never disregard that. So there are certain songs that you are obliged to play, and we love to deliver those to our crowd. But conversely, we're still making records. We're 23 records into our career. We're still John's the best songwriter he's ever been right now. He's not on the down, he's on the up. So we're still making records, still making great music. And for us and for our creative vitality, we need to continue expanding our music beyond, just a hit parade. So there's a good balance of all those things. There's good deep cuts, there's great hits, there's new material that'll challenge people too. It's a very well-balanced set.
I love it. It does sound like a little bit of past, present, future. That's exactly what you need. I love it.
Well, yeah.
Do you want to tease anything off the new album? I know it's called Orpheus Descending. I know there's one called Hey God, another one called The Eyes of Portland. What just give our listeners, if they're huge Mellencamp fans, like I am, like a lot of us, it's just great American rock music, heartland rock, if you will. But tease maybe if they haven't picked up the new one, what's sort of the vibe?
Well, Hey God is an absolutely amazing song. To me, that's the most amazing song on the record, but it has relevance on all fronts: political, personal, familial. All these different things are touched on in this song, and it's a bit of slice of today's political environment. It's a remarkable record. John's still writing beautifully. We'll probably be heading into a studio and making yet another record soon. So but we try to keep the new material to very choice songs. We're not going to glut people with and play the entire new record, because that's what people want.
I've been to those shows before too. I went to a Bob Dylan show, and it was like a bunch of stuff no one knew.
Okay, I hear you, and I'm a huge Dylan fan, and we're actually
of course.
I've been to shows where it was like, what was that? What was that?
Exactly. Because, there's like hundreds of songs that we would know, and he picks the ones that you don't. But it's all right.
Oh yeah, well he could be persnickety, just by nature. But still, the greatest songwriter of the 20th century.
Of course, when you reach a certain level, you sort of can do whatever the hell you want. People pay the
ticket. Exactly. Yeah, it's like exactly. You're just lucky to be in his presence.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Well, we'll be lucky to be in your all's presence too, because I mean, man, the hits that you all have done with John Mellencamp are unbelievable. I'd love to run through some of them, but before we do any of that though, when did you actually meet John Mellencamp? Was he John Cougar
Well,
Mellencamp at that time, or what
oh no, it was
iteration was he at
John.
the?
It was Johnny Mellencamp. I met him in I finished college right around 1976, and I was interning at a recording studio in Bloomington, Indiana, because in the old days you were not able to go to Berklee School of Music or Indiana University recording department and learn audio engineering. The only way you could learn it was through internship. And there was a drummer at the University of Indiana. His name was Jack Guilfoyle. He was the drummer for Henry Mancini Orchestra,
Oh
uh,
wow.
Johnny Mathis, and some of the greatest, big jazz bands in the world. He had a state of the art studio in Bloomington. And I went down and just basically badgered my way into an internship. And so I was there like scrubbing toilets and cutting tape and, just doing the really nasty work of an intern and the sorcerer's apprentice as such. And
Rubbing toilets, the Moon River as a new meaning, a whole new meaning.
hey, well said. And and Johnny was making his very first demos, and that's where I met him.
Oh, that's so cool. And yeah, I mean, what was that initial meeting like? What I mean, what were you like? This guy's he's insanely talented, or did it sort of take a bit to
Oh
realize?
yeah, obviously talented and insane on top of it. I mean, just like really super high energy, raw.
Yeah,
Really raw.
yeah.
And the record was he was just making demos to try to get a record deal, and he had a guitarist who was marginally competent. And after those sessions, I'd go in and I'd kind of just overdo some of those parts and just overdub them, and that's how we met. And then we had about a year and a half hiatus where I went on off with another group that I was working with. He went off to England and scored a record deal, and then he came back, and in '78 I joined him full time.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so then if you joined in 78 full time, then you were there for basically all the biggest hits that we can talk about because American Fool album was what 82. So yeah, you would have already been on there for along for the ride. So
Oh, oh
let's
yeah.
let's run through them and there, obviously there's so many that we'd be here all day if we had, in-depth dives into all of them. So maybe we should almost treat it almost more like a rapid fire. So I'll throw out a title and you can just share a quick memory or something. But I know that first album Hurt So Good and Jack and Diane. Memories of putting those two together
Oh
real
yeah.
quick.
Okay. Well, yeah. Those that was a long. Those are long months, because we were still searching for what we were trying to do. We were boiled down to at that point nothing but two guitar players and a drummer and John, no bass player to speak of when it came to American Fool. We hired a guy in Los Angeles. We worked on Jack and Diane for a long, long time. We started it in Miami at Criteria Studios, and we were just trying to lay down an acoustic guitar track with some sort of metronomic timekeeper. And of all things, the Bee Gees were in the studio next to us, and Maurice Gibb came by our studio and said, "I've got this new little drum machine. Would you like to try it?" And so he brought in one of the very earliest Lynn drum machines, and it had that
Yeah.
that little backbeat that we used
Yeah.
in Jack and Diane, but we really were only using it just to cut the acoustic, and then we went ahead and kept it, and that's sort of the genesis of that song.
Wow. Thank you. That was just a little ditty. And then that turned into a legend. And what about Hurt So Good? Because man, I mean, that is a classic rock anthem. Come on, baby.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that was that. We actually had moved to Los Angeles by this time to continue working on the record, and we were just two guitars, hired drummer. I mean, hired bass player and Kenny Aronoff on drums and John. So it was just a little svelte little package of three musicians and our singer, and we worked so hard, like that little hook line of da 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 da. Larry and I played that must have been 500 times because we didn't want to overdub it. We wanted to play it at the same time because that gives a certain kind of phasing to the guitar sound. So we just kept on it, and kept on it. And I recall there's a great little tale that I'll probably shouldn't tell it all. And that we had one of the record company presidents from Polygram was sent over to hear what we were doing at Cherokee Studios in Los Angeles at that time during American Fool. And we'd had a hit, a top 40 hit, our first top 40 hit, which was Ain't Never Done with the Night, the year before. And that was more of a blue-eyed soul song.
Yeah.
Pretty boy, pretty love song. And the guy came into the session and we played him Hurt So Good. And he obviously didn't get it. And he looked at John. He goes, maybe we should put horns on it. And John blew his top.
Yeah.
And walked over to the side door of the studio, invited him to walk over with it, and then shoved him out the side door of the studio and closed it. He ejected the president of the record company and said, you don't like it? Give us the record back. And they reluctantly released the album, and it had 2 number 1 songs on it. So guy probably didn't keep his job anyway.
No. Great stories. That's so good. Thanks for Jack and Diane and Hurt So Good. And I always like in that song, but where he goes, all day long, huh, the little huh. I love it.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's a little John Elvis Mellencamp. All right. All right. Well, all right. Moving on to in '83, Crumbling Down, another great one. We probably don't have time for all these, but all right. Pink Houses. I mean, Ain't That America for You and Me?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, that's probably the most like American heartland rock I can think of. It's literally the American dream, man. I mean, is that why it works? You think?
Well, it is, but it's there's a counterpoint to it. Yes, it's a lot of the great things about America, but it's also points out a lot of the inequities, that exist in America. Where a kid thinks he can do anything, and maybe he can. There's a young man in a T-shirt, listening to a rock and roll station. He's got greasy hair, greasy guy, and he said, "This must be my destination." There's all kinds of little sort of innuendo woven inside the lyric of that song, right, that it's a little more satirical than I think a lot of people think that it is.
I thank you for that. It's almost like the people that shout "Born in the USA" and really it's like a critique of and so this is that's great. That's like a American Dream satire where it's like,
that's exactly
ain't that America? Like, there you go. Yeah,
that is absolutely what it really is.
I love that. Thank you. And then of course, and kind of ties into the same record. I fight authority. Authority always wins. Authority song. Talk about sort of how Mellencamp and the rest of y'all, a little rebel nature in that song.
Well, I mean, we have grown up. We grew up in the music business, particularly at our beginning. Everybody hated us. Everybody hated us. Nobody liked us. Nobody thought we'd do shit. I mean, there was nobody rooting for us. We were the kids from the Midwest, that didn't know anything, that had funny accents, that dressed weird, and we're not cool when we went to LA. And the Authority song is kind of that's kind of what it's saying. Everybody's trying to punch you down, but you got to just stick to your guns. And that was actually done. That record was done in a farmhouse in a tiny, tiny little hamlet in the middle of Indiana. That John knew a friend of his who's building a house. And he said, "I tell you what, Jeff, let us turn your house into a studio for 2 months, and I'll help you finish your house." And he said, "Okay." So we came, ripped out the living room, put this recording studio in it, and threw a piece of glass on a wall so we could see through the other room. And we made the record into this guy's house.
Wow. It wasn't a pink house, was it? It was different.
It was not a pink house.
But all right. So I like that. All right. Yeah. You doing it since you were a young kid and you came out grinning.
That's right.
Well, we have to hit Scarecrow album 85. We have to. Lonely Old Night, ROCK in the USA. Some really catchy stuff. But tell me about Small Town. That one it's real. I think it's one of the catchier ones. But what about you?
Oh, agreed. I agreed. And it really does sort of tell the tale, of who we are and what we are, and who John is, and how it's never really changed. I mean, I still live here in Bloomington. John has a house here in Bloomington. We're just small town guys, and that's yeah, man, we are. And it's like, Mike Mills is a close friend of mine from REM, and they're kind of the same boat. They grew up in Athens, Georgia. That was their town, and Mike still lives there. I see no reason to go anywhere else. I am a small town guy, and I really enjoy it. And it's like sort of there's like a moral fiber, to the Midwest, and there's a moral fiber to small town America that is sort of undeniable, and it's part of the charm of America, and you lose that, you lose the identity of America. You become, the corporate, strip mall,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what we don't want to see happen.
Yeah, great subject matter, absolutely. And born and live and probably die in the same small town. And
Damn right.
by the way, and deceptively intricate, challenging lyric to pull off too, to repeat the same line at the end of each whatever
Oh, yeah, yeah.
stanza.
Oh,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Born in a
Absolutely.
small town,
I
taught to
still
fear
remember.
Jesus in a small town. Like that. That's hard to do.
It is. I can recall when some of my quote unquote musical snobby friends heard it for the first time. They kept going, small town, small town, small town, small town. Why do you keep saying small town?
Yeah.
Well, we're still saying small town.
It's all right to be a little bitty, Alan Jackson.
That's right.
Lonesome Jubilee. I promise we're not going to go through all of them, so we won't keep you all day.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we have to hit Lonesome Jubilee really quick. Paper and Fire, Cherry Bomb, and Check It Out. And memories of that album. How do you think you
My
guys were
God.
evolving by that time?
I think that this album, in my opinion, Scarecrow and Jubilee were the pinnacle of a lot of the writing at that time, where everything came together. And particularly, if you're talking about Jubilee, we have every time we went away from a record, we would take the time, like months, maybe a year off, not maybe sometimes not that long, but we would go and we would try to find new musical inspiration to bring back to the fold. So after Scarecrow, which was still, guitar, bass, drums record, John says, "Hey man, let's all go out and let's learn another instrument." So I went away and worked on banjo, worked on dobro. Every people worked on steel. We picked up Lisa Germano, a fiddle player here in Bloomington. We had a great keyboard player named John Casella, who was an incredible like B3 player, traditional organ player. And John says to him one day, when we're kind of discussing this matter, he goes, hey, John, you play anything else?" And he goes, "No, I play accordion." And reluctantly, because what was the uncoolest instrument on the planet?
Right. Unless you
And
need
of course,
Weird Al, then
and it turns out that the guy, John Casella, was the junior state champion accordion player in New Jersey.
Wow.
So once we figured that out, he was locked on, and that's when we started like doing instrument combinations in order to get different sounds, like combining like a banjo with a dobro, a violin with an accordion, like on the hook line of "Check It Out," or Paper and Fire. I mean, da 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 da.
Yeah.
The reason that sounds like that is because it's an accordion and a violin playing dead on the same thing, and the phasing between them and the different timbres combining. So that was kind of the genesis of that musical sound for that record. And John's writing was just at its pinnacle.
Man, I'm just smiling my face off going through all of these songs because it's like the soundtrack of so many of our lives, man. I love it, and I've been enjoying all these breakdowns. Now, I have to admit though, I wasn't. I'm gonna underdate myself or whatever. I was born in '84, so my parents showed me a lot of these, but my era was more like Whenever We Wanted and Human Wheels and the Dance Naked Out. Like I remember the Wild Night cover, the Van Morrison. That was
Yeah.
a cool cover. But anyway, it just echoes down through the generations. It's timeless stuff. I mean, we're spoiled, but you all, Mellencamp and Seeger and Springsteen. I mean, you all just painted a picture of our country, our heartland.
Right. I mean, the thing is, it's their songs. All of the people you just mentioned wrote songs, from the heart. They were not corporately designed. They were not anticipating a 2 minute and 58-second single. All those things didn't apply, particularly in the early days. There were no rules. You could have a "I Need a Lover" with a 3-minute intro if you wanted to. It didn't matter. You think about those songs, even by like Kansas and some of these other bands that were very, progressive kind of, arrangements.
Yeah.
There were no rules, and that was what was great about it. You could just make music for the sake of music.
Well, you don't even know what you're dropping right now because we just talked to Kansas. We just we just talked to the guitarist, Rich Williams, the other day.
Wow. So yeah, we opened up some shows for that, and I thought, man, particularly Steve Walsh was an amazing singer.
It can kick ass. Look, dare I say underrated of the 70s bands, but they're still going. 50th anniversary tour, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Fantastic.
Yeah, but you all, Mellencamp, not underrated at all. Inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame in '08, Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2018. So I'm glad you plugged his songwriting credentials. I agree. One of the greatest ever to do it. Did you get to go to that and perform with them or anything, or how did that work?
Well, certainly at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, yeah, we were all there and on stage and being recognized. Songwriter, no, I wasn't there for that. Those honors come up quite a bit. I have my own life, a pile of children. When John receives an individual award, he usually just heads off and does it.
Right. Well, yeah, your own children are the most important honor, honestly. So that's cool. Well, real quick, final seconds. Didn't you all do? I mean, I wanna dote on sort of the philanthropic stuff. Weren't you a huge part of getting Farm Aid off the ground too?
Yes, one of the four original people that got it off the ground. I was actually inducted into the Farm Aid, quote unquote, Hall of Fame 2 years ago.
Oh, there you go.
They honor one person a year, and I've been the musical producer for the Farm Aid records, and a consultant with Farm Aid, from the beginning. And yes, it's something that held really dear to John's heart. His sister and brother-in-law lost a farm during that Scarecrow era, and that was probably one of the things that sort of pushed, that song Scarecrow to get written. Yes, Farm Aid is still vital, still happening. It'll be happening again next September yet again.
Well, there you go. In a place like Washington, D.C., these causes like that are appreciated. So, well, bravo with the Farm Aid. Yeah, see, I didn't even realize. I was dropping the Rock Hall of Fame and stuff. Didn't even realize you got in the live Farm Aid Hall of Fame. There you go.
But if you want to get a bang for your buck and see some amazing music, Farm Aid's the place to go. You can see, Chris Stapleton, or any number of stadium headliners all on the same bill, same day. Neil Young, Willie, ourselves, Dave Matthews. Always, we're always there.
That's awesome.
And then
when is the next one, by the way?
It's, I think, next September 21st, and I can't recall exactly where it is. It moves around the United States every year.
Okay, gotcha. Man, that's it's an amazing thing that you put together with that. So congrats and bravo.
Well, thank you.
Well, but we'll stay tuned for that. We'll plug that, once it comes around. But first, everybody, you have to check out John Mellencamp, and of course the guitarist we're talking to now, Mike Wanchik, at DAR Constitution Hall in DC on April 18th. Actually, final second, now that I think about it, that is the same venue where literally like a couple weeks before that, Elton John and Bernie Taupin have just received the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize at DAR.
Right.
So some of the magic will still be floating around the room, baby.
Oh, fantastic. Well, funny enough, I just recall the first time I played that room was we were opening up for the Kinks in 1978.
Oh, wow. Now you really got me now. I mean, that's
I got you that time. I had a couple synapses just accidentally connect.
They're firing randomly a lot of these interviews all day and all of the night.
Right.
Well, hey, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for all the great music. Seriously, all these songs, they're amazing.
Well, we look forward to seeing you guys.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.